Hey, what's up guys, DarkArmedDuelist, and today I'm going to be doing a Spellbook Dogmatika deck profile. So I'm really excited to you guys because of how well these two archetypes work together, with Spellbooks not really needing an extra deck, and Dogmatika being all spellcasters. Combining these two archetypes together in one deck makes for one incredible deck. So without further ado guys, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell there so you can come part of the notification squad, and definitely check out the Patreon down in the description below for all those awesome rewards like getting your name description in a single video, getting assigned cards in the mail, and even getting to request a deck profile every single month to your Patreon, along with test hands. So without further ado, let's get straight on into this. So first off, we're going to be playing 3 copies of Spellbook Magician of Prophecy. This card is a great normal summon that has the ability that when it's normal summoned or flip face up, you get to add a Spellbook spell card from your deck to your hand, which is a great effect to get the exact Spellbook card that you need when you want it. We then play 2 copies of High Priestess of Prophecy. This card is a great special summon that has the ability to reveal any 3 Spellbook spell cards in your hand to special summon her to your side of the field from your hand. And then once per turn, you can banish a Spellbook spell card from your hand or graveyard and then target a card on the field and destroy it, which is really good to be able to pop 1 card. We then play 3 copies of Dogmatika Ecclesia. This card is incredible in this deck because she has the ability that she can't be destroyed by battle with a monster special summon from the extra deck, and then you can once per turn use each of the following effects of this card. That if a monster special summon from the extra deck is on the field, you can special summon her from your hand to your side of the field, and if this card is normal or special summoned, you can activate the effect to add any Dogmatika card you want from your deck to your hand, which is a great effect to give you a search and a special summon. We then play 3 copies of Dogmatika Maximus. 3 Dogmatika Maximus is a really good number for this deck because it has the ability that you can banish a Fusion, Synchro, XZ, or Link monster from your graveyard to special summon this card from your hand. And then during your main phase, you can activate this effect to send 2 cards with different names from your extra deck to the graveyard, and also your opponent sends 2 cards from their extra deck to the graveyard, and also you can't special monsters from the extra deck for the rest of the turn, which is not that big of a deal because you're not really special summoning at all in this deck. This card's really good because it helps you get rid of cards out of your opponent's extra deck while also setting up for all sorts of different plays. We then play a single copy of Fleur-de-Lis. Fleur-de-Lis is a good one of in here because this card has the ability that during the main phase, if a monster special summon from the extra deck is on the field, you get to quick effect special summon this card from your hand. Then, if you control another Dogmatika monster, you can negate the effects of 1 face-up monster on the field until the end of the turn. And when your Dogmatika monster declares an attack, you can make all Dogmatika monsters you currently control gain 500 attack, which is really good, especially with your copies of Maximus only having 1500. We then play a single copy of Dogmatika Nexus. I'm playing a single copy of Nexus in testing, and I'm really liking this card because Maximus just completely sets this card up because it has the ability that it can't be normal summoned or set. It must be special summoned by its own effect by targeting 4 Fusion, Synchro, XZ, or Link monsters in the graveyards, either yours or your opponent's graveyards. Special summon this card from your hand if you banish those cards, getting rid of all sorts of different cards from the graveyard that your opponent might need for further plays. It also has the ability that at the start of the damage step, if this card battles a special monster, you destroy all of your opponent's attack position monsters, and then inflict 800 points of damage to your opponent for each Fusion, Synchro, XZ, or Link monster destroyed by this effect. Also, a 3200 attack point monster is just absolutely crazy. This card is really fun to play in this deck, and I highly recommend that you guys try it out. We then play 3 copies of Silent Magician. Silent Magician is super fun and easy to summon in this deck because basically all you have to do is tribute any spellcaster to special summon her to your side of the field, and she also has the ability that she gains 500 attack points for each spell or each card in your hand, and then once per turn she can negate a spell effect, which is really good to be able to just negate a spell effect with this card. We then play a single copy of Silent Magician level 8. Because of the effect of Silent Magician, you can special summon this card out to your side of the field if this card in its owner's control is destroyed by an opponent's card effects, which is really cool. You can just immediately special summon out your copy of your Silent Magician level 8, which is a great card to be able to summon, and it's unaffected by spell effects as a 3500 attack point monster. I really like this card as a tech card in this deck to be able to just immediately get it out because basically your copies of your Spellbook Magician and your Ecclesia can turn into your copy of Silent Magician, which is a great boss monster for the deck. So that's it for the monsters, guys. Let's get into the spells. So for the spells, we're going to be playing a single copy of Harpy's Feather Duster, basically just to get rid of your opponent's back row while you're going in for all your different plays. We play 2 copies of Nadir. Nadir is really good because it searches your Dogmatika cards while also sending a card from your extra deck to the graveyard, which is super helpful for this deck. We play 3 copies of Dark Ruler No More. Dark Ruler No More is here because it basically shuts down your opponent's field while you're going in for your plays, and I really like this card in this deck. We play 3 copies of Spellbook of Secret, which searches any of our spellbook cards from our deck to our hand. So this card is a great 3 of in this build. We play 3 copies of Spellbook of Knowledge, which is an incredible card because what you can do with this card is you can normal summon out your copy of your Spellbook Magician, search out your copy of Knowledge, link away for Artemis, use your copy of Knowledge to draw 2, and you've already set up your copy of Maximus to be a special summon out to your side of the field, which is why we play the 3 copies of Maximus, Magician, and Knowledge in the deck to be able to draw 2, send 2 cards from your extra deck to the graveyard, and get rid of a card out of your opponent's extra deck too, which is super helpful for this deck. We then play 3 copies of Spellbook of Fate. This card is great in this deck because this card has 3 effects. You banish Spellbook spell cards from the graveyard, and then depending on the amount that you banished, it has 3 different effects. You can either return 1 set spell or trap on the field to the hand, change 1 monster on the field to face down defense position or face up attack position, or banish a card your opponent controls and it doesn't target, which is absolutely crazy good for this deck. And it basically just gets rid of cards that you don't want to have to deal with. And so this card is a great card for this deck. We play 2 copies of Spellbook of Power. This card is a great 2 of. I really like playing 2 copies of Power because it lets you target a spellcaster monster you control. Until the end phase, it gains 1,000 attack points, and also it has the ability that during the end phase, each time it destroyed a monster by battle, you can add a Spellbook spell card from your deck to your hand, giving you additional searches. We play 2 copies of Spellbook of the Master. Spellbook of the Master has the ability that you get to reveal, if you control a spellcaster type monster, you reveal a Spellbook card in your hand, and then target a Spellbook normal spell card in your graveyard, and then copy the effect, making this card the same effect as that card that's in the grave, which is really good. Play a single copy of Spellbook of Eternity. Spellbook of Eternity lets you target 1 of your banished Spellbook spell cards, and then it lets you add it back to your hand. 1 copy of Wisdom. Wisdom helps out a lot because it lets you target a spellcaster type monster that you control and make it unaffected by either traps or spells, which is really good. And then we play a single copy of the Grand Spellbook Tower. I'm basically just playing this card for the name. It does come up every so often where you're going to use its effect to once per turn during the standby phase. If you have a spellcaster type monster on your side of the field or in your graveyard, you can place 1 Spellbook spell card from your graveyard on the bottom of your deck. And it also has the ability, then you draw a card. And then when this card in your possession is destroyed by an opponent's card and sent to the graveyard, you can special summon a spellcaster type monster from your hand or deck whose level is equal or less than to the number of Spellbook spell cards in the graveyard, which is a really good effect to be able to just get additional spellcasters on your side of the field. So that's it for the spells, guys. Let's get into the traps. So for the traps, we're going to be playing just 2 traps, and that is going to be a single copy of Dogmatika Punishment and a single copy of Shadow Schism. These are basically here because you can use cards like your copies of your Dogmatika Punishment and Maximus to send cards from your extra deck to the graveyard to be able to use your copy of Schism to be able to go into some Shadow Fusion monsters, which is pretty good for this deck. I really like that. It's a really good tech card in here. The copy of Dogmatika Punishment is searchable and helps you get additional plays in the deck to be able to pop cards, send your Shadows to the graveyard so you can get searches, and it's just an overall really good card in the deck to be able to set, but it does lock you out of going into the extra deck, which is a little bit of a downside, but it does pay off where you're going to be able to pop a card. So I really like the copy of Punishment at 1, and Schism is just absolutely incredible because it lets you during the main phase fusion summon a Shadow monster from your extra deck by banishing a fusion material from the field or the graveyard, but it can't attack directly. And then you can also send a monster that your opponent controls to the graveyard that's the same attribute as the monster that you summon, which is always going to be either light or dark. So this card is really good to be able to go into your Shadow Fusion monsters from the extra deck because you can send cards like a Pokelone to the graveyard to be able to instantly search this card. So that's it for the main deck, guys. Let's get into the extra deck. So for the extract, we're going to be playing a single copy of Crowley, the First Prophecyr. This card is a really good one-of in the deck. You don't go into it all that often, but it's a good one-of to play because it has the ability, if this card is link summoned, then you can reveal any 3 spellbook spell cards with different, or spellbook cards with different names from your deck, and your opponent randomly picks one and adds it to your hand, and then shuffle the rest back in the deck, and you can only use the effect of this card once per turn. And each turn, one level 5 or higher spellcaster monster, you can normal summon it without tributing, which is pretty good to be able to summon out cards like your copy of your High Priestess with this card, and be able to just summon out copies of like Maximus with this card. It's a really good card to be able to play as a one-of in here, and you only make it if you have multiple high-level spellcasters in your hand, or you want to search for the exact spell card you need. We then play a single copy of Access Code Talker to give us additional pops. This could be a Borreload or a Boral Sword. One copy of Selene, because it works extremely well in this deck, especially with all these spellcasters we play in this build. One copy of Phoenix to pop spells and traps, and a single copy of Artemis. Artemis is a card you're going to be going into all the time in this deck, because basically all you have to do is summon out your copy of your Spellbook Magician, link into this card, and then use Knowledge to be able to draw 2. And then once you draw that 2, you'll already be set up with Maximus with this card in the graveyard, which is really, really good. We'll play a single copy of Alamirage just in case we need it, so this card comes in really handy as well. And then for the copies of the Dogmatika Punishment and Maximus targets, we're going to be playing a single copy of Totally Awesome, because we can actually use this card to get back our copies of our Spellbook Magicians because they're water type. One copy of Omega, because Omega comes in very handy in this deck to be able to send to the graveyard, because Omega has the ability that you get to, if this card's in the graveyard, you can target one other card in the graveyard and shuffle both that card and this card into the deck. So basically you can recover any card that you need. One copy of Construct, because you can make it with Schism. One copy of Apokelon to search the Schism, because it has the ability that if this card is sent to the graveyard, you can add a Shadow card from your deck or graveyard to your hand, and then discard a card, which is really good to be able to send a copy of this card to the graveyard with your copy of the Nadir or copy of Dogmatika Punishment to be able to get that additional search. 2 copies of Winda, because Winda is extremely easy to summon in this deck, and it's just a really good card and shuts down your opponent from special summoning. 1 copy of Titaniclad, because Titaniclad is a really good card to send to the graveyard because of its search ability. And then 2 copies of Elder Entity Nist for the double pop, which is really, really good with your copy of Dogmatika Punishment, or you can send it to the graveyard with the Deer to get a pop and a search, which is really, really good as well. So that's it for the deck, guys. I hope you did enjoy it. It's a really fun deck to play with. I highly recommend that if you've not played with Dogmatika Shadow or Dogmatika Spellbooks, it's a really fun deck to play with, and very interesting at how well these 2 archetypes actually flow together. So anyways, guys, this is DarkArmedDuelist. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell there so you can become part of the notification squad, and we'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.